A couple of weeks ago, we did a live stream where I was trying to build my smallest VHF, UHF, and HF ham radio bag. And this is it. This is what we came up with. I had a lot of fun building this, and I want to take just a shorter form, more condensed crack at showing you this little bag and what's inside of it, and as well as some honorable mentions or some replacements to this that might be a little bit more economically or budget friendly for those of you that are starting out in amateur radio but still want a fully capable and small radio go bag. Let's take a look. All right, this whole little kit fits into a handy little thing, which is just it's literally a hip bag. You can wear it as a shoulder bag, or this little clip here will go around your hip. It's a bum bag, fanny pack, whatever you want to call it, but you can do it whatever you want. You don't even have to use these clips. It's got a cool little handle on the bottom. You can just use this as a modular bag that goes into a larger backpack for your gear. But anyway, let's start on the outside here. Inside I have pretty much, I think the antenna that you have to go with on things like this, which is going to be the K6ARK end fed. There are other end feds that are small, but they're not nearly this small. And that's really what you need here, is you need something that's going to be super, super tiny, but still be effective. You can go small, but you can't go small and effective. And I think the K6ARK antenna is the one that really has my nod anyway for an antenna to go portable with. Now, this radio system does leverage Morse code, CW. And so with that, I still have to write with tablets because I am bad at Morse code. So this is a Write in the Rain mini tablet. This is probably a bridge too far in most situations. You're not going to be able to put many contacts on here, but I include it for just the sake of like size. This is a great little EDC tablet of paper to have, and these are perforated so that you can make a note and then tear them off. I actually bought like 12 of these, and I put them in like every bag, including my wallet, and I write emergency info, like call Leia in an emergency, and I leave Leia, my wife's, phone number in case someone finds my corpse or I go to the emergency room and I'm unconscious. I'm also a big advocate of field notes, and I think I've got, yeah, there was my my live CW log, one of my favorite things I've done on a live stream in a while. Anyway, some swag. So if you catch up with me and I've got this on me, I've got stickers. Let's see, is there something else? Yeah, all of these have little clips inside them too, so you can bungee off things or just have internal. I always love these, but I never use them for anything. I'm assuming you're supposed to use your keys on here, but you know, whatever. So anyway, you get the idea. All right, so the way these work is clamshells open, and you've got two major pockets. You have some elastics, and then you've got two long elastic sections, and then kind of this mesh outer. And there's nothing on the back side other than these belt loops. So let's go through the middle part here. This is my favorite mechanical pencil. I'm not a huge mechanic, so one case and other pencils like it. If you see here this little Q, when I push, it rotates. And that is why I like this pencil. Every time you write, it ejects a little bit more lead, and you can keep writing and it'll just keep going as long as you've got lead in here without having to go in there and constantly adjust it. I love mechanical pencils, but I hate like using mechanical pencils for having to constantly, like I'll flat spot one side and then I'll have lead and it'll break. No problem, this just keeps shoving out lead, which is great. Now, the VHF UHF antenna that I am carrying is the Smiley telescopic quarter wave. Now, there are many different options for this. You could roll up a signal stick inside here using some of these loops, and it would look something like this, which now I've stretched out the elastic a little bit, but you'd be able to get this to close and you'd be able to carry this with you. That's a fine option. In fact, that might be preferable from going with this Smiley, because the Smiley is a bit fragile. The advantage of the Smiley is that is tri-band. So this will do 2 meter, 1.25 meters, and 70 centimeters. Also, it's a really hard size to beat. So this goes here in the elastics on the tight side of it. You could switch these, it doesn't really matter. I used to have coax that I ran through here, really small diameter coax, and that's what I would do. All right, so starting with these guys, again, you have elastics here, so you have other options, but here's the first pouch. Side pouch. So we've got a USB A to USB micro, and a coaxial power lead with kind of a unique connector, and a USB micro 10 volt buck converter or up converter. Now, this is a bit excessive and it doesn't really fit in the bag, but if you take an Anker power pack, something that supports power delivery, so PD or IQ in the case of Anker, and you plug this into it, you will deliver 10 volts out, and this is actually modifiable, these buck converters, up to 12 volts. This does not fit in the bag, but this buck converter is only this big, and this USB cable is not that much bigger too. I could probably size this down. So this is more or less there just in case I come along something where I can plug in USB and I could power my radio with that. It's more of just a prepperish, be prepared kind of thing. But no, standard connection here. We've got a power plug to a coaxial lead for our HF radio. Now, next one is, yes, very important. So I went and got some Cable Creation micro tip ring sleeve 3.5 millimeter jack wires. These are, they don't really hold a memory. They're small, they are thin, they're light. I'll have links to pretty much all this stuff in the video descriptions for this kit so you could follow along if you are interested. These guys are available on Amazon. They're really inexpensive, and they go along with my key, which this is the N6ARA Tiny Paddle. Wow, I'm gonna have to zoom in there so you can see it. Tiny Paddle. And how this works is, so once we get it back in the body here, so we take our audio jack and we plug in like that. Actually, I take that back. We're going to take our orange piece first, then go through the audio jack and plug it in. Now, here's your DIT side, and here's your DAW side. And this is a micro key. You can work contacts that way. In fact, I did that with this exact setup on the live stream. There are a couple of different variations of these K6ARA keys. There is the female version, which is what I have here, and then there's the male version for something like a True SDX or a KX2, something that has a socket for it. You can just plug it in directly and go to work. And in fact, it comes with a little plastic vial so that you can keep it with you at all times as a backup key. And these are great. They're very inexpensive, and you can buy them as a kit actually, so you can do a little surface mount practicing if you want to do that. So that definitely goes in this kit. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not good at Morse code, right? Again, but I had an okay time using these. The DAW and DIT are adjustable. You can use this, you can use a tool like a pair of pliers or something like that to adjust the gap here. And they work just great. So far, so good. All right, next is a pair of earbuds. These are Skull Candy earbuds that I've had for ever and ever, and they have a Velcro strap. The important thing that I want to make note of here is an inline volume control. So this is tip ring sleeve, and it has a small dial adjuster here, and that is for the radio that I have for this kit for HF. So in the bag here, we've got a 4S LiPo. Yes, this is a LiPo battery. So you've got to treat these gingerly, carefully. Don't puncture these guys. Be very careful. The reason for the LiPo, though, is when you check its output, you're getting about 12.42 volts, which the radio, which I'll go ahead and tell you is the Mountain Topper 3-band, can't really take 13.5. So you can't really give it a lithium LiPo battery. You've got to give it just a lithium-ion battery and only a couple of cells to bring that voltage down. And in fact, this is a little high. This is a happier radio when we're down towards 11, 10, and actually it'll run off of a 9-volt battery. And so that's why this is a bit of an honorable mention as well. USB-C 9-volt batteries will actually run this for a couple of hours, which is kind of cool. But no, just went with this, and then the ability with the buck converter to be able to USB charge it if needed with about 10 volts, and that'll get you a couple of watts output. So okay, enough belaboring that. Let's hit the radios up really fast. I have honorable mentions for both of these because, to be honest, they're both kind of difficult to get. So the VHF radio, and I know I said VHF, UHF, and that's where the honorable mentions come into place, is going to be the Pico APRS. So many people have said that can't be a functioning, useful radio. It is now more than it has ever been a functioning radio. It is a 2-meter simplex radio, so voice. It will do repeaters now, so you can load repeater programmings and CTCS tones. It will do APRS messaging. It will run as a digipeater. It will run as a fill-in digipeater. It will also run as a KISS TNC. So this thing pretty much does everything you want as long as you want it to be VHF. It doesn't have any digital modes, which, you know, okay, fine. That's okay by me. I think most of you know I'm not the biggest digital mode fan, but they're fantastic little radios. What's the downside of this? Well, it's $400, and I'll link to my video review. I'll link to my video review so you can take a look at what I think of this radio, which I think it's a winner. The downside is that it's $400. With that said, it is more capable in many ways than radios that are 3 times the size of it, which is pretty impressive. So anyway, there's that. We'll put that on the side here. So that leaves my HF radio, which is, I already mentioned, the Mountain Topper 3-band. The L&R Precision Mountain Topper. And this is what I understand to be the last iteration of the Mountain Topper 3-band. This one has the BNC connector and the much larger screen. Both of these upgrades are really nice to have. The original Mountain Toppers had a small 2-digit numeric screen and an RCA connector for the antenna. So they were pretty unique. Notice that there's no VFO or anything like that, as everything is extremely flush. It's quite a popular radio for summits on the air, folks. What's the downside? Well, it's CW only. It's Morse code only. It is a form-specific radio for doing Morse code. And I'll tell you what, this kit, to be honest with you, is kind of like, at least in my mind, the kit that I want to activate my first Parks on the Air with, because I don't want to use a whole lot of power when I do Parks on the Air, and Parks on the Air Morse code is what I mean. I don't want to use a whole lot of power. I want to be very low power so that I don't get a lot of people replying to me. I'm going to be freaked out enough, and I want to take it as slow as I can. This one does 20, 30, and 40. It's a fine little radio, and again, part of the reason why people like them so much is that they pack down so small. So what are the honorable mentions? Well, one of them is just off the side here. This is the SW3B. Very similar radio, very similar sized. I appreciate that there's a bit of confusion here. I have a 3D printed, I'm actually working on putting on some 3D printed sides here. But you can see they're very similar. They actually have a lot in common. The only difference is that these VFO knobs sit a little proud, and the 3B does not have the programmable memories of the Mountain Topper. The 3B actually has a couple advantages though. This will do RF gain and AF gain, whereas the 3-bander does not have any of that. It's very low frills. So CW only with both of these, but that's probably not what I think most of you would gravitate towards. For most of you that are interested in single sideband, multi-mode type stuff, I think you need to go with the True SDX. This is made by DL2MAN, PE1 November Zulu, and it is a multi-band HF radio. Oftentimes it's called a hobbyist kit radio, and it is. It is similar to, I think it's negative to say this, but I don't mean it negatively. It's almost like the Baofeng of HF, meaning that for the price point, there's no reason why everybody shouldn't have one of these. These are about $130 shipped to you, and this one is 20, 30, 40, 60, and 80 band. It was programmed with my call sign on there, and it's checked out as a pretty decent radio. I have gone through, at least I believe I did it correctly, and I've updated the firmware a couple of times on this, and you can hear on the live stream how effective this was.
The capital down south of you, about 40 or 50 miles south of Portland. We're in Salem, Oregon. Over.
This sounds great.
Copy that. I'm 50 miles north of Salem, Oregon. KI7ZZQ.
And it's still out there. It's a 1954 van, super van. And
I've never heard it this good. It's always a little rough, but I guess I did an update, a software update on it, and they might have sorted something out. I was doing CW with it last night.
I only have one good one. Q, calling Q, Kilo Delta 9, Kilo Juliet 3. Thank you.
Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu.
CQ, calling CQ, Kilo Delta 9, Tango Juliet Zulu, CQ, calling CQ.
Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu.
November Alpha?
Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu.
That's Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu?
That is correct. That is correct. This name here is Josh in Cerritos, California.
Clear in California. Can I get the signal report?
Yeah, I got you about a 5.555 here in Southern California.
Clear, you're 5.9 into Indiana. I watch your videos.
Oh! Hey, thanks, buddy. Can you give me your call sign one more time? I happened to stumble upon you, and you're live right now on the show. Everybody's watching this QSO. Now, the advantage with the True SDX is this has a microphone built in for doing single sideband. If you use headphones, it's actually pretty okay. The Morse code is not fantastic. It's not a good Morse code radio. I would prefer or point you towards the 3-band or even the SW3B. But if your heart's set on single sideband and you're not ready to go Morse code, that's fine. You can use this. The big thing though is with this micro USB cable, you can actually do digital modes with this. And there are a ton of videos of people online running this in WSJTX and JSA call, which then this turns into kind of an attractive little grab and go potential emergency radio solution, because you can use this, although not perfectly, it's going to be a little rough, you can use this as kind of a shortwave receiver and general coverage receiver to a point. There are some limitations to it, but you can definitely use it on the ham bands, particularly those that it is set up for, again, 20, 30, 40, 60, and 80. And those are probably going to be the good bands that you might want to use. These are available also on the higher bands. So I think it's 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10. Those are on the higher frequency side bands. Not bad, all in all. The only problem is you may have to spec up your bag a little bit, because once you start adding these knobs, then it's going to stick out a little bit. And really, a part of what I wanted to do here was keep this really small bag. Last thing to mention, yes, honorable mention for VHF, UHF. Here's kind of another unobtainium radio, and I apologize for that. Small radios, actually, there's not a whole lot of them. And because of that, we kind of have to gravitate towards the things that may be a lot more expensive, but, I mean, get the job done, like our friend, the little Pico APRS. But the Yaesu VX3 is actually really, really nice. It's a 3-watt VHF UHF radio, and you can see it's pretty small, but it's not nearly Pico APRS small. The advantage, though, is that this basically functions like every other 2-meter handheld that you'd ever use that's analog. The advantage, though, is that this is using basically commercial off-the-shelf cell phone batteries, or at least batteries that we used to use back in the day. These little 1,000 milliamp hour 3.7 volt 3-pad topped batteries. Now, I found out that these are still new old stock, or they're still being manufactured by Yaesu. I'm thinking these are new old stock. So every time I go to like HRO, I'll buy one of these like once every, 6 months or so, until I get to about 4 or 5 of them. That way I'll just have backup batteries that I can swap out to. There's actually an accessory for this too, which I also own, which is an A-cell battery carriage. So you can swap this whole battery assembly out, put in a couple of A-cells, and you can get this radio to function that way too. Same problem with the True SDX is that if you add them together, you start running out of room pretty quickly in the pouch. So you may have to spec that up to the larger handy little thing, which does exist. And let me show you what that looks like really quick. So small handy little thing, large handy little thing. And similar setup, but it's a bit more usable from my point of view. These pouches are larger, so you can fit a lot more in it. And then whatever you have in this mesh pocket, right? So if you've got a couple of coax, other pieces like that, very similar to the kit you're seeing right now already. But there's also an understash kit, and the understash kit is where I keep this Elecraft tuner. This is for another kit. But yeah, anyway, so you get a lot more space in this one. So you may want to size up to this larger handy little thing, but I've found that this is, it's big enough that it starts to be known more in your pack, if that makes sense. If this is something like this dark blue one, I'm going to grab and just throw it in a bag and it just goes with me. This is nothing. This weighs nothing. It disappears in your pack pretty well. This is a lot bigger, particularly when you start packing it out and it starts getting a little fatter, right? So keep that in mind. There you go. I had a lot of fun making these. I hope you found this fun. So what do you think? Are you going to challenge yourself to build a tiny amateur radio bag? Again, here's the size of my small bag. And I have a slightly bigger one too. It's actually the handy little thing, the larger size one. This is the small handy little thing from Tom Binh. I highly recommend their bags. I'm not affiliated with Tom Binh, but I still really, really recommend them. They have really revolutionized a lot of my small pouches and bags that I use in amateur radio, so highly recommend you check them out. If you found this video helpful, why don't you give me a thumbs up? I'd really appreciate it. And sound off in the comments and let me know what you think of my little kit. And maybe tell me what's in yours or what you'd swap out of mine and replace. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you later. 73.